Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 233 of the Wheatley podcast. Thanks very much for joining us today. Thanks for listening last week, where I talked about lyric writing and writing stories, and going into personal things and all that kind of stuff. The slippery slope around it, and as soon as I recorded it, I went too far on that one. But it turned out that nobody gave out to me, so I think I got away with it. Unless some people just didn't listen to it, and then it could be that too. Our buy me coffee thing, always the link is in the description, stuff like that. Let's get into this week's episode. My guest this week is a psychotherapist who specializes in gambling addiction, and his name is Jamie Earl. How are you doing, Jamie?
Derek, how's things? Hello, everybody.
Thank you very much for coming on. Like I said before, thrilled to have you. Something like I mentioned to you before we started, something that we haven't covered before, and obviously is something that's a very, very important topic. But before we get into that stuff, we always start in the usual spot. Could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, look, I'm from Athlone. I'm born in Athlone. Still live in Athlone, and I'm going to die in Athlone. I would say my upbringing was very stereotypical of the time.
Mhm.
I was born in the mid-80s and I grew up in the 90s. So I have a younger brother and sister. I'm from the Batteries in Athlone there, just on the outskirts of it. Very much a working class family. My parents were not together for most of my childhood, some ins and outs. And again, I think that's very usual looking back at
Mhm.
the people I would have been hanging around with at the time. That seemed to norm as opposed to the settled nuclear family. And look, everyone did their best with what the times that were there. But look, that's the way it was. I went to school in the Dean Kelly there. Looks like a jail. Big railings all around it. Probably a lot of people are familiar with it. And I ended up in secondary school in both the Tech, I think it's the community college now,
Yeah.
we called it the Tech, and Aloysius, which is also gone. That's out in Summerhill now.
Mhm.
I lived in kind of going outside my upbringing now, but I lived in Galway for most of my 20s, but came back here when I started my own family.
Um, so with all that, we always ask the same questions as second question. When did you first become aware of mental health?
Yeah, and again, that's something I thought a lot about. And if I'm being really, really honest there, I was in my 30s. I was 30 or 31 when I realized what mental health was.
Hmm.
I would have had anxiety would have been a mainstay in my life. I was always anxious, but I never really had the vocabulary to express what it was. To me, that's how I was. I didn't like certain things, so I didn't do them.
Hmm.
And that to me was normal. But there was always that part of me that realized, well, because everyone else seems to be able to go and do these things. Why can't I? What's so different about me? You kind of turn that in on
Yeah.
yourself and beat yourself up. You don't realize you're beating yourself up. I've just always done that. That to me is that's my day to day. And it wasn't until I had my son and he was maybe 6 to 8 months, and I was struggling really badly with anxiety, which led to like being on edge and being tense, little outbursts, and like very persistent. Like I was very afraid of my own mortality, and it's becoming increasingly worse, and it had been for years. I sent it to my GP, and my GP signposted me to a psychotherapist here in Athlone town itself. And when we started working together, I just thought, wow, I didn't realize what was going on, why it was going on, and what I could do around that. It was so powerful. It was life changing for me. But I was 30, maybe 31 at the
Yeah.
time, and I know mental health is it's almost buzzword now. Everyone knows mental health and mind yourself and self care, and you hear all these things, but there's a depth in them. They're not just words, and I never realized that until I was that age. So I was quite late.
Yeah, we've had a few people kind of talk about the idea of it usually revolves around anxiety when they talk about having felt like that as a teen or younger even, but not having a name for it or a description for it. So it becomes a kind of thing of normalized in your life that you think, well, everybody must really feel like this. I think it when it comes to when you get out of school maybe and you're moving into college and into your 20s and stuff, when you start realizing, well, this, I don't think people are feeling like this. I don't think, people are going about things that uh, either can't do or would prefer to avoid. I just don't want to do them. And I just think it's an interesting thing now that you're right. They aren't just words, and we can throw out all the kind of thought bubbles and all those kind of things that we want. But unless we really like explain all the symptoms and maybe the things that can lead to these kind of mental health difficulties, we probably will continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Well, very much so. And that was one of the biggest learnings for me. It was this self-perpetuation or self-perpetuating cycle you'd be in.
Mm.
So you'd be, okay, oh, my friends are going out, but like, I just don't want to go out. I have all these like several thoughts bombarding you. Oh, sure, people don't want to see you, or what would they want to be hanging and do something different. And okay, I just won't go because, people will think I'm odd.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'd be at home and they'd be like, okay, you're not coming out anymore. You must be odd. It's like, well, the
Yeah.
very thing I thought was protecting me from being odd was what was making me being odd. And again, those words they're just labels, I know.
Yeah.
But it was this very much cycle propelled by myself, that the very thing I thought was protecting me was the very thing that was feeding into what was actually eating me.
Yeah, that's one thing in particular that stuck with me, and still every so often still comes back is when I'll make an I'll put words into people's mouths in the sense of like, sure, who'd want to hang around with me? I'm always miserable, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you think you change it into your thought process, and then you're sitting there in that, like at home when there's a party or something that's going on outside, and you've created that thought process.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I create the thought process as a protection kind of thing, or if I create it just to beat myself over the head with it, like to make myself feel bad because of the anxiety or the depression or whatever else it might be. It is like it is like this vicious cycle at times. It's very difficult to get out of, especially when you're obviously having a tough time.
And look, I agree. I think there is that protection element. I think at some stage that was probably very adaptable in my life, in your life, in anyone's life, where to withdraw from a situation that they didn't enjoy, that protected you as a kid on some level, whether that was going into school and redhead, four eyes, knows everything. It's like, oh well, I don't want to be around that. I'm going to not go there.
Yeah.
And like that threat is somewhat real as a kid. So withdrawing from it does protect you. But as you mature and you're an adult, what threat is there? I'm perceiving something as a threat, and therefore I'm going to my same mechanism that I used as a child to help me, but it's not helping me as an adult. And it's kind of maybe identifying that and saying, you know what, good job at one stage, but let's learn something new. Let's
Mm,
challenge that. Let's challenge. Is there anything to be afraid of here? And how can I act differently around that then?
absolutely. So clearly your experiences with a psychotherapist was pretty mind blowing for you and so helpful. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but is that something that inspired you to become a psychotherapist yourself?
Oh, it was at least 50% of it. I
Okay.
was always fascinated by people. I say I love people, and I don't mean this all encompassing, compassionate love. And I do love and I do care about people. But for me, I'm very curious. Why is everyone different? Why is he acting that way? Why is she saying that in this situation? There's something behind it. I was always quite a deep thinker. Even as a kid, I was always like that. Thinking about what drives people, what motivates people, why are they the way they are? And then through my own psychotherapy, I found towards the end of it, well, I wasn't doing therapy anymore. I was asking him how he became a therapist, and I realized he kind of said it to me, "Do you realize what's happening?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 weeks we've only been doing this." And he signposted me to do a cert. So the cert was before the degree. It was 3 hours a week on a Wednesday evening. It was a taster course. 12 of us would sit down once a week for 3 hours and we talk about our feelings in relation to certain words. And I just thought, wow, I've never done that. I'm a 30 something year old man in Ireland. We don't do that. We
Mm,
don't sit around in big groups and talk openly about what hurts us, what we think, what we're afraid to say, why we're afraid to say it. Our experience is everything. And I found it very freeing, very provoking cognitively. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I will. I'll go on, I'll do the degree and I'll see what happens. I never thought, yeah, I'll just do this degree and I'll be a therapist. I kind of thought this is one step at a time. There's a lot of personal development, particularly particularly the cert in the first 2 years of the degree, there's modules on personal development. And I found those the most challenging. Never mind the academic side of it. You can sit down with books and papers and you'll extract the information eventually. But that it's that personal stuff. It's that working on yourself. It's the parts of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge. Maybe on some level you know they're there, but you're just easier to push them all down rather than bring them all up, look at them and try and figure them out. So again, it fascinated me and I just kept going.
There's something about I talked to someone before about this, to a therapist about this, on here. I mean, not, in my own therapy, but there's something about a therapist having seen it and done it, or been through certain experiences that was always it drew me in a little bit more. And I don't like that, mightn't be the same for everyone, but the last therapist I went to see was open to a point. Obviously they can only be open to a certain point, and you can't be like pally and all that. There has to be a client, a psychotherapist
Boundary.
relationship there. But he was able to tell me some stuff about himself, and I found it much easier to open up to him than I did to all the other therapists I had been to see. And yourself, with something like the public space, when you're going to see therapists, it's a different one every week, whereas you don't get to form a relationship anyway. There's like, they ask you again what what medication you're on. You have to go again, and you get kind of flustered. I certainly did, but my last one, it became a kind of a thing where, because I knew he'd been through some stuff himself, and was still going through stuff, because we're all still working on it. I was able to open up a bit more and be a bit more descriptive or something. I didn't hold back as much. Do you think that's important for you as a psychotherapist?
I think it's the most important part of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's there's a famous psychotherapist, Irvin D. Yalom, and he would say it's the relationship that heals. That
Mm-hmm.
you're not, you can have all the theory, and that's all wonderful. You do need it. You do need to draw on it. But if you're not connected with that person or able to form a connection, it's largely going to be wasted. They have to
Yeah.
feel safe. They have to feel trusted. And there'll be certain parts, I think, what you're talking about, self-disclosure. There will be certain parts when appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you're in session with someone, the hour is about them. It's not
Yeah.
about you. If your stuff is coming up, you got to park that and you address it later on. But yeah, there is helpful self-disclosure, definitely. And he also, the same guy, Irvin D. Allen, he'd say the wounded healer. And he'd say a lot of psychotherapists. And in my own experience, I'd say I obviously don't have stats for it, but I will go on the limb and say, if not every, but all, or most psychotherapists would have some experience that brought them to
Mm-hmm.
that profession. People aren't coming out with a leaving cert and saying, right, psychotherapy. People are doing that later, a little bit later in
Yeah.
life. There's something going on. They've had experiences. I know from the people I've studied with. I know from just being in that field that very much drives it. And I agree completely with you. I think it does. The relationship is crucial. If you're not getting on with the person, my advice would be change.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting on, either address it with them, and that can be very uncomfortable, but there's learning in it as well. Because it's quite difficult to say, you know what, we're actually not getting on here.
Yeah.
Why? But there's great learning in that discomfort as well. If I was to say it to you right now, says that we're not getting on, what's going on? It'd be just like, oh, it'd be
Yeah.
weird.
It would.
But it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
There's no harm in changing your therapist. Sorry, and I didn't mean to go over there, but no harm in changing your therapist if you weren't getting on. Find that fit for you.
Yeah. I did at one point, but I sent my mother to do it, so that removed that kind of awkwardness. But so tell us a bit then, Jamie, about the service that you're providing with regards to gambling addiction.
Yes, so the resource centres around Ireland have gotten funding from the Gamblers Awareness Trust to roll out uh, a free counselling service for either people that have gambling disorder themselves or the friends or family members, because that can be quite difficult. If your partner, brother, sister, friend was gambling, could affect you. If you're living with someone and you're saving for a holiday and all of a sudden they've gambled that and you didn't know and the holiday comes up, that is going to impact you. So it's not just for the people with disorder themselves, it's for the friends and family. Um, we're trying to get that established
Mm-hmm.
in, I suppose, my catchment area is Westmeath. I operate in the Athlone Family Resource Centre, and there's another resource centre in Balnacarrigy. It's just outside of Mullingar. And it's just getting awareness because most people know where to I'm an alcoholic, AA, the Drug and Alcohol Task Force. Same for drugs. It's quite clearly signposted. When it comes to gambling, that help just it's not where the other addictions are.
Yeah.
It's only in the last 2013 it was reclassified from an impulse disorder, an impulse control disorder, to an addiction, which is a mental health disorder.
Yeah.
So it's relatively recent that it's even been seen in the same category. I think people see gambling and they think, oh, sure, you're an idiot. Why are
Yeah.
you doing
Yeah.
that? That's your fault. Where
Yeah.
the same isn't true. You wouldn't like it. We don't really have the same words around drug addicts,
Yeah.
around alcoholics. You see a celebrity and they have an alcohol problem, a drug problem. They go into a center and it's love and wishes and support and we're there for you and you can get better. Then you see a Premiership footballer, Ivan Toney. Okay, you're banned for 9 months. You're fine. No one's allowed to sign you,
Mm.
and it's complete. It's just like they're treated very, very differently. But they're in many facets the same. But there is a different tone, and I suppose this service is trying to bridge that this is real. This is not the people's fault. They're suffering from something, and that there is help there, and we're at the forefront of that now, and that change is coming, and to be part of that is. I know we talk about buzzword, but privilege, and privilege
Yeah.
is a word we use a lot in psychotherapy, but it genuinely is.
Like, does it go? In, is it something as simple as with alcohol or with drugs? It's that we understand it because we're putting something into our body.
Mm.
This is for the people who don't have the addiction, but with gambling, it's not like you're not putting anything into your body. You're the one who's deciding to go into the. It's not even about going into bookies anymore, is it? It's going on your phone or whatever it might be.
That's the thing, yeah.
You know,
It's
that
it's now
that idea.
Yeah, it's now 24/7. It's there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, so if you're with a substance addiction, you can see the drink on in the drugs, gambling. It's they call it the hidden addiction. You're never you drink so much, you're going to fall down. You take
Yeah.
enough drugs, you're going to pass out. There's nothing stopping you. Gambling, bar, money, and then that's where things get really murky because you have people borrowing. You have
Mhm.
people going into crime to fund it in the extreme in the extreme trolls of it. But you go to a pub, you're drunk and you're falling around. The barman has an obligation to say, listen, no, you've had enough. You go into a bookie, you keep putting 50, 50, 100, 20, whatever it is on that counter, you will never be questioned.
Yeah.
That bookie will just keep take, take, take. It'll never be what's this guy that's on the welfare? How's he after putting 700 across this counter? And we're not talking figures here, but just to put a bit of colour on it. The only time they ever question you is when you start winning. That's the
Yeah.
only time, because gambling is unregulated in Ireland. Even looking at our neighbours in the UK, it's far more regulated. Just like you said there, it's not just the bookies, it's on your phone. You could be
Mhm.
betting on under 17s table tennis in Vietnam. And I'm just sitting there pressing buttons and my money is going out. But someone knows that. There's people on the other side of your phone on any of the gambling companies, and there's nothing usual about a guy or a girl, sorry, don't mean to gender it, but putting money 100 at
Yeah.
4 o'clock of a Tuesday morning and doing that fight. Can anyone in any good conscience say, yes, that's healthy?
Yeah.
That's okay. That there's no guard around that. That no one reaches out and says, oh, hang on, are you okay? The only time they'll reach out for you is when you haven't put money into your account in 3 weeks. Hi, we miss you. Here's a 50
Yeah.
euro free bet.
Yeah, yeah, that's. Do you know? I didn't. Obviously, we talk about the idea of like, oh, I bet on the FA Cup final or the Grand National. You know those big events, but you don't really think of the idea that you just mentioned there, like this under 17 table tennis. You can literally bet on just about anything now, and obviously the odds are always stacked against you, and you keep going and you keep just pressing something as easy as sitting in your house, just pressing the button over and over again, and again about someone's not falling down drunk or they're not slurring their words or banging into walls. It's not visible. It's not clearly visible. The attitude or behavior might change, but you're not going to, like, if you didn't know about the betting problem, you're not going to put it down to gambling. You might put it down to someone's like in a mood, like we always do. It's like we'll never like look at it. It's just you're either moody or you're happy or you're things like that. I think for for somebody who maybe, does want to reach out and does want to get help, but they're finding it the guilt and the shame, because that comes, I guess, with all addictions, the guilt and the shame, the difficulties of reaching out. Like, I'm sure you've experienced that in your work. Um, what advice could you give on that?
Reaching out is hard.
Hmm.
That's just genuinely what I think it is. And you're right. There is more. There is shame around all addiction, but there seems to be more around gambling. It's more hidden. We talked about this actually in college when I was we did a I did a problem gambling level 8 cert with UCC. But one of the questions was how we sorry, I lost my train of thought there. How if it's is there more shame around it
Mm.
or not? And there was a little bit of debate, but I just said, look, gambling is money. I said there was maybe 15 of us in the class. We'll all type was on Zoom, same as this. And I said, tell you what, we'll all type in our bank balance, how much we earn a week into the chat, how much we charge our clients. We'll all press send. And it's like I said, that's just a thought experiment. How do we feel about doing that? We're all like, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. But and there is already a stigma around money in general
Hmm.
anyway, and now you're adding that into it being lost. So I think there is a shame of, like you very correctly said, around people feel that around all addiction basically, and then gambling almost is another layer of it because it's tied in
Mm.
with money. You know, oh sure, look what she did. She can't even send the kids to school. Or look what he did. He was supposed to bring his wife away for the weekend, but he did that instead,
Yeah.
and that does creep into it, and it affects our societal standing, our esteem, if we're not able to meet those things because of gambling. So it is, but to the original question, reaching out is hard, and there's no getting away from it. I know what that's like. I know when I came out, when I first reached out for help myself, when I went into a doctor's and I was given a number, and I sat in my car and my heart was going, I was like, what do I, but I have to, because like, this can't continue. I don't want it to continue anymore. And ultimately, I was ready at that point for a change,
Yeah.
but it was just really scary. And but I suppose the people at the end of the line want to help you. That's their job, that's their
Yeah.
profession. 9 times out of 10, they've made that phone call you've made as well. They know what it's like. I know what it's like. Yeah, it is scary. I'm just going to acknowledge it's scary. It's
Yeah.
terrifying. You're very brave to make that call. You're very brave to send that email because you're opening yourself up to something you've likely been pushing down or hiding for so
Yeah.
long. And that's terrifying. And I just say, look, the support is there, and it is by good people, it is by trained people, it is by people that uphold a very high ethical standard of confidentiality and privacy, and that want to help you change. So I'd say, yeah, just accept that it's scary, and if you can, make that call.
Yeah, there was another thing I was thinking about this when to do with addiction, in the wider sense. And so when I gave up alcohol, about I think it's 15 years ago now. And I would never say I was an alcoholic, but I was slowly drifting towards that. I thought I was slipping towards that kind of territory, and um, I knew I had to stop drinking. And but my initial thought on it, and I don't know if this would kind of track with gambling as well, but it certainly did for me with alcohol, was the social side was a massive thing. And because I had built up a number of friendships, and it was all around alcohol. We wouldn't meet outside of the pub. Like, it was always in the pub and then a nightclub, and then you go home and you see you next weekend or whatever. And that was a big thing, and I had to realize that I had to lose that side of it to get away from alcohol. Now, I don't know if that tracks with, like I said, tracks with gambling addiction, but it's likely that it could, because you might be in a couple of friends who gamble every weekend on football, whatever. That kind of thing is daunting as well, because we talked a bit about earlier on growing up, and people, kind of moving away from people and staying away from people for certain reasons. But if you're taking yourself away from people that you enjoy spending time with to get it through a certain thing that that's very, very destructive, that again, on top of admitting it, is pretty difficult too.
Absolutely. And again, you're obviously very aware around these issues, because that is something that is a part of it. If you go down, Go down any bookies, open the door and look in. You see roughly the same people in there.
Mm.
They're your friends. They're your community. You're not just giving up gambling. You are giving up a social aspect. And for many people, maybe it's their only social aspect.
Yeah.
And that's another challenge. Maybe the reason that you're gambling in the first place, and it's something I'd hear quite a lot. I'm bored. Okay,
Mm.
bored. And then more you're with someone, you drill into bored. But they're not really bored, they're lonely.
Yeah.
And the gambling is to, well, I'm gonna mask the loneliness. And I think a lot of addiction, you're dealing with the symptom where the cause is usually a lot deeper. So why are you lonely? What happened? You can work around that too, but it isn't without its challenges because it is a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
If you're not going to the bookies every day, if you're not going into the casino at night or wherever you're doing it, even look at the way I see the way sports are talked about in my lifetime. When I was young, it was it might have been his stats on Championship Manager or a goal they scored or who was better, this or that. But now it's odds. Oh, did
Mm.
you see he was this price for first goal scorer, or oh both teams score was that price, how we speak about sports
Yeah.
is very I won't even say diluted because it's covered in betting terminology now. Turn on any football game, turn on any sports game, betting, betting, betting. Every ad is for betting. The hoardings say betting.
Yeah.
Half the teams in the Premier League have betting logos on them. And what percent of people that watch this are kids? That's I don't have the stat, but it's high. It's at least
Hmm.
a quarter. And do the guys at the top know that? Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So they know what to do. And I think there is a certain insidious nature to that if we're targeting that and we know. And it's easy to say, I see with gamble aware, gamble responsibly. It's like, yeah, buy our product and use it. But if anything goes wrong, it's your fault. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the message that's put out by the gambling companies. The responsibility is very much on you, the punter. But yeah, look, there is that side, that social part of it. That is a loss. It is again. Sometimes the truth is just the truth. That is part of it for a lot of people. There is avenues you can, questions I'd ask near at the start. Is there things you used to like doing that you don't do anymore because of gambling? And I
Mm.
maybe make kind of a note in that and be, could they go back doing that with help? It's not because it's not just
Yeah.
oh yeah, sure. You used to go football 3 times a week. Oh yeah, sure, just stop and do that instead. It's not that simple. But to work towards it, to put a plan in place that okay, I can stop doing that and continue doing that. How do I feel now? Do I feel better? Because a lot of gamblers, what do you get out of it? What's
Yeah.
happening for you? It's meeting a need of yours, and a lot of cases, it's exactly as you said. It's meeting a social need.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do? Okay, can we find something else?
Like it's fascinating what you said there about the one, my brothers obviously, and we grew up loving football and
Mm,
talking about players as like, well, he's better than him because he's
mm,
got a better goal scoring record, or was
yeah,
always that. And I'm someone who's had three official bets in my life, so that's all that I've done. It's never been something that I've got into. So now that we hear about, oh, say the Euros were just on, so we'll say like Harry Kane, he was favoured to score first. Like
mm,
it's a very weird way to word it. Like
yeah,
rather than saying, well, he's their top goal scorer of all time, that's why he should be scoring first, or he's their striker, which makes
yeah.
even more sense to suggest. But the way the language changes over time is interesting. I remember the first time I noticed the kind of the looming threat almost of the idea of like everything was going to be around betting was when Ray Winston used to do an ad, and he
Yeah,
just he kind of be shouting that shit like,
yeah,
and you felt like, because Ray Winston, like, obviously playing off the idea of some of the characters he played
mm,
in real life, was kind of a threatening character,
yeah.
as
That kind of gangster,
yeah,
Indiana Jones type culture. Yeah,
and I was like, should I go and bet just to kind of calm him down a bit or something? This idea of like
yeah,
intensity
yeah.
of,
I'll prove how much of a man I am to Ray
yeah.
Winston. I'm one of the lads. I'll do this.
Man, another thing I wanted to put, and you mentioned it earlier on, the idea of, if people don't know the story about Ivan Toney, who's a professional footballer, who's a really really good professional footballer. He was in England squad for the Euros, but he was banned for 9 months for betting on football. I don't think there was any. Was there any? Did he bet on his own team at all?
I don't know the ins and outs of it.
Yeah,
I think he might have had information just through his network. So I'm with
yeah,
Juventus and you're with AC Milan and we're pals. And you say, Jesus, the goalkeeper's actually he had COVID 2 weeks ago. Long balls are a thing, so you're betting
yeah,
on he's now mathematically more or less likely to score. But again, that's the bookies protecting themselves because they have you tied up every which way. They have teams of mathematicians,
mm,
statisticians, analysts. You're just one person thinking you know more than them,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you don't. That's the truth of it. No, we don't. We may
Yeah.
think we do. We may think we're aficionados on anything. They are not you.
No, I just, but I remember at the time, and I don't know what your opinion on it is, um, that the idea of this footballer who was constantly faced with people betting on him and betting on games around him and betting on games all over the world, obviously, but the Premiership being the major focus of football, really, club football. Um, he got suspended for 9 months and got a not allowed, like you mentioned earlier, he wasn't even allowed to play football at all for 3 months, and then he eventually got back into training and stuff like that. And a lot of people felt that it was a particularly harsh punishment, particularly because it wasn't him scoring in his own net or something, which would have been very dodgy then,
That'd be corrupt. Yeah.
yeah, which would be, yeah. So people felt it was bad, and then there was the question. If finally the question was asked by some people, well, maybe we're doing a bit too much here with the betting. Maybe we shouldn't have clubs being sponsored on their shirts by betting companies, and every time Sky Sports have an ad before a match, they have a betting company. Um, you mentioned about they know, the betting companies know, they have everything about them. Um, do they, in your opinion, do they actually care though if there are people suffering?
In my opinion, absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't believe so whatsoever. I think the more you lose, the better for them. I actually watched it's a very good documentary on Netflix. It's only an hour. It's Paul Mercer. He would have been playing
Mm,
when I was young, so I know him, and he's a bit of a character, like him or not. He has his own story. But someone comes on and they're talking about their husband, and they're going through it like, look at all the money he's deposited, and he later ends his life by suicide. But someone knows. Someone
mm,
knows, okay, look at this guy who's a builder in Plymouth and look at the money that's going through his account.
mm.
Like, how can anybody say with any kind of integrity say, yeah, that's okay, that this person's okay, that there's no like, sure, okay, I think there is self-exclude buttons now, but you'll see, if you get emails, oh, welcome back. We miss you. I seen them. We miss
Yeah.
you. It's Valentine's Day. Come back. And they give you. I had a betting account with Betfair years ago. And I'd stopped. I'd done a bunch of money on it. Now, I was never, just to clarify, I was never a gambling addict. I would have gambled problematically at times,
Hmm.
but I was always able to stop. I could do a lot, but then I was always thankfully able to manage that. So I know what it's like to get in those little sprees and then, oh no, this is hurting.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, I never went past that. But you get these, here's £200. That's like saying to someone, you've mentioned been off the drink 15 years. Okay, so 6 months into that, the off license comes down. Oh, here's a free bottle of vodka, Derek.
Yeah. Yeah.
One is clearly wrong, but one is happens all the time. And I don't think there's any where the person did that will probably have a court case again.
Mm.
If they did that I didn't mean to use you as an example, but just to use a kind of a
Yeah.
really hard hitting one. And then that's what's happening in the bookies all the time. Free bets, free bets, a free bet. Why? Please entice you in. You go on, go up and log on an app on Paddy Power there and do up an app or do up a bet. It'll tell you the maximum payout is X amount. So no matter what the odds are, we don't pay you past that. You can lose whatever you want, but we actually
Right.
don't pay you past this amount. They'll ban accounts. If you're winning too
Oh.
much, they'll limit your accounts. You can't bet more than X amount a day. You can't bet more than X amount a day, or they'll just shut you down. And these are things people don't really see because 99% or higher of people that are gambling are losing. And I'm not anti-gambling. I'm anti-gambling harm.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you go down on a Sunday and a couple you throw on whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with, and it doesn't get worse than that. There's
Yeah.
no chasing involved. It's not causing you mental distress, physical distress, anyone at home, any of those things. you're having some fun with your friends, and it is enjoyable. So again, I'm not vilifying
Hmm.
gambling.
Yeah.
I am the gambling companies, because I do think there is
Yeah.
that undercurrent of something. I don't think it's right the way they consistently pump it out, and don't deter anyone to. I think it is okay to do it socially for some people,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
we're talking.
There's another thing, Jamie, like, because I think it's great that the service is providing for people who are also affected by it. Because, I think with regards to addiction, there's the the collateral damage as such, like with people around you, and that are affected, and family members, friends, whoever it might be. Um, I'm sure there's a lot of call for it, and I wonder, just again, just thinking about this, writing these questions out for you. Um, isn't another thing of people kind of thinking, well, I'm like, I don't know if I should ring because I'm not the one who's, who has the addiction, or things, maybe feeling that they're, um, even though you're advertising it, they're stepping out of place. Like they shouldn't be taking up the phone line, or they shouldn't, because I think a lot of people think like that as well. If they're not the ones that are actually there, that are having the serious problems, that they shouldn't be calling.
Yeah, no, look, and I would say to those people, if even you're having that dialogue with yourself, call.
Mhm.
If you're struggling with it in any way, my training is not just with the directly affected person, it's the affected others. Because it is, and maybe it is boundaries and need to be tighter, and they can be hard, because there's, like, the big example will be, so your partner is doing it and you say, look, this has happened so many times now, you're gone if you do this again, I can't anymore. But you love that person, then they do it
Yeah.
again and they're not gone because you love them.
Mm.
So how can you kick them out? And that goes back to what we're saying about the cycle, because what have they learned? Now that's a very extreme boundary, but you can do that work around boundaries. How can you protect you in all of that? How can you signpost them to help? If it's affecting you, it's affecting you. You'll know it is. You're not wasting anybody's time. You're you're looking for help, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the service is for everybody that's affected by gambling.
So say just kind of an example. If I called up and with a gambling addiction, and fearing, the kind of worst and stuff, we get to chat with yourself. After the first call, what's the kind of the follow up? Is the obviously available to kind of call again, chat to yourself if they've already talked to you? Are you the only one there, or
In
there's other people?
in in that, if you're availing of a service in Westmeath, it's me. So I'll
Okay.
be the one that answers the phone. I'll be the one that answers your email. It's not, it's not a support line. It's not anything like
Yeah.
that. This is one-on-one counseling. It's psychotherapy framed around an, a gambling disorder and addiction. And again, in my experience, what's underneath that? If that person is ready, safe enough, comfortable enough to keep going through those layers. If you reach me and you don't like me for whatever reason, that's understandable. I'm in a group with other gambling therapists all over the country. They all
Yeah.
work online. I can, with that person's permission, say, look, either maybe there's no availability, but I can actually refer you to someone else if you'd like. Um, if you're willing to do it online, or you can wait for me. You can do it. I can do it online as well. That service is there. It can be done online. It will be just me if you're working one on one in Westmeath, but that's not to say I can't connect you with someone else, because it happens all the time. Just the other day, I see a message go up in the group, and there's no details given.
Yep.
It I have a I have a client. Can I pass can I pass someone details on to them?
Yeah.
It won't be, oh, listen, I'm chatting to this lad, Derek, he's this age, and this doesn't get fleshed out.
Yeah.
This is this is me signposting to someone else, either because me and you aren't gelling for whatever reason, and that's, like I said, that's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Nobody is, but I can still find help for you. I mean, my hours don't suit. Maybe I'm booked a million different things, but no, that this is nationwide,
Yeah.
and it can be done, in my opinion, equally as effectively online. Some people don't like it, but look at this. This is a
Hmm.
natural conversation. Who's to say it's better or worse?
Yeah.
It's different, but it's still the same.
Yeah, and I suppose I was kind of pointing out the idea that they can build that relationship with you, like we mentioned earlier on, the idea that it's not necessarily going to be shifted around, and if they because I think that first step in particular is very, very difficult. So you kind of latch on to the first person that you've told about it because you feel trust and safety with that person. It goes, without saying that that's going to be something that you'll want to follow through, and that's important that you're going to be the one. Um, is it difficult to not take your work home?
I think the broad answer to that will be yes. I'm probably one of, I don't know if I'm the luckier ones or it's just my way of naturally dealing with things is I'm quite good at separating my work from
Mhm.
my work. Because you have to be,
Yeah.
because if that starts blending in, it is going to impact you. And I hear people, burnout is a very common thing. What they call it, vicarious trauma is now something that studies are showing that therapists would be affected from. So if you're listening to trauma all day, you
Hmm.
can actually take that on physically in you and relive it yourself. So it is separated. I mean, sorry, it is hard to separate. I find me it's probably one of my strengths
Okay.
to separate that. Whereas I understand that that's your life. I understand that that's your problem, and I will whatever I can. I'd always say to people, is like people think because I'm sitting in this chair and you're sitting in that chair that I'm somehow the expert. Well, it's your life. You're definitely the expert. I'm just, you're Indiana Jones and I'm that guy that goes around the jungle with him. It's your jungle. You lead the way. I might reflect back to you. Oh, is that the same as that? Or
Hmm.
or what's it like now? Or what's this? Or has it changed? I'd be asking questions. You be the one answering them. I'm not coming with the answers. You already have them. I'm just trying to help you look at them as in a non-judgmental and safe place of curiosity, if nothing else. So
Yeah. I think that thing, when not when I started therapy, but when I was kind of halfway through and I felt I kind of know a little bit about it now, and I obviously know myself. I was always worried that there was going to be some sort of a quiz. Like there was, at any point, somebody was going to start quizzing me on what
yeah,
I'd learned or what I was talking about, that kind of a way. And
yeah, yeah.
look, I don't know if you know, I'm learning to drive now. And every time I get in the car with Paul, my driving instructor, I'm thinking, he's going to give me a quiz now. I'm sure of it. I think I'm petrified of quizzes. I think that's what I'm finding out about myself anyway. But you know that kind of idea of you like someone's not if anybody has spoken to a therapist before, it's not like they're going to just be kind of, and when did this happen? When did this happen? It's not like it is like a conversation, and that's something that was quite soothing for me after the first couple of sessions, where I was like, actually, this is all this is okay. I can kind of handle this. Um, people worry that they're going to have to give away so much of their whole lives, and it's obviously not the case. It certainly wasn't for me, and but it shouldn't be. Like you said, you're leading. They're talking, but you're kind of almost leading them gently in certain directions. And if it doesn't, like, if there's no path down this way, well, we'll go back to, it's actually it's obviously a very interesting thing. It can be very difficult at times. Obviously, if we're going to be talking about something like addiction, it's going to be very difficult. But it's something that very reward. Well, I've found for something that's very rewarding, I'm obviously looking at different reasons for doing it, but you know, to be able to have a service like you're providing, like that, is very, very important.
Yeah, look, and I'd say even I wouldn't even say I was the one leading. I'd say they're leading, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm following. Now, sometimes I might say to you, well, some of my role might be can be perceived as I'm challenging you. I'm not. I'm just curious. It
yeah,
could be, are we not talking about anything, or is this worth looking at? I'll never push you into anything. No, no, this is your issue because that's me. Then that's my desire to be right or solve
yeah,
something, and it's not about you anymore
yeah,
or the client. So I'd always say, look, I'd let them lead. I'd ask the questions, and wherever that opens up, it opens up. Yeah, there may be occasional times where you might challenge something. Okay, is it difficult for you to talk about this? I noticed when we start talking about this, you may immediately change the subject.
mhm,
Is that something you'd like to talk about? If not now, ever. I'd never. This is not a hold you down, face in the water. You tell me all your secrets, and
yeah,
somehow miraculously you're healed. That's not how it is. It's very much at your pace. when you're ready with someone you've developed a relationship with and trust.
How do you look after your own mental health?
Um, I do the things I like as often as I can. That's
Mm,
that's the most simplistic way I can say it. If I just want to get a kebab and watch the football, if I want to meet a friend for a coffee, if I want to get lost in a book, if I want to watch 3 episodes of something in a row, I allow myself to do that. I don't be, oh, you can't do that now because you have to do this. I say, no, I need this time for me.
yeah.
That and that can be quite hard. I think as an Irish person, it's, oh, this lad has ideas now. So it's like, no, I respect myself, and it took
Yeah.
me a long time to do that. It took me a long time to learn that it's okay to care about myself, that there is a good selfishness that is a thing. I'm not selfish to the point that I don't listen to anyone, disregard everybody, but I do take my own time. I spend time with my son. I spend time with my friends. I invest in my activities that I enjoy, whether that be, like I said, watching football, reading a book, a podcast,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. That's how I do it, and it's different for everyone. Some people are very into meditation, mindfulness, yoga, exercise. Everyone has the different ones. But my ones will be, yeah, spending time with my people I care about, and some quiet time with a good show, a good book, a good podcast, things like that.
I often hear, I work in the gym down the road, and I often hear people, if you say like what you do at the weekend, they're like, oh, I watched like a full, show. I shouldn't have done it. There's the guilt,
Mm.
to doing something. And I don't, obviously, I'm just the coach in there. I'm not just going to tell them that yeah, you're allowed, but they are allowed. Like, if you feel that if you're tired and you want to sit down in front of the TV, as long as you're not like neglecting, things that have to be
Absolutely.
done, you have to do the things that you enjoy, and find time to do them. If don't overburden yourself at work and then coming home and then doing all the cleaning and all of that kind of stuff, because it is such an important thing. And that the idea of burnout, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago, that someone was put no kind of noticed through the podcast that I might be heading for if I don't kind of slow down, because there was a couple of things that I was doing too much of. It's always there on the horizon, like, and that little bit, even that what you're mentioning there about, going for a cup of coffee and those kind of things that are relaxing. um like everything shouldn't be stressful, like filled with anxiety.
Yeah.
Like watch, whatever the latest show is on TV or whatever film you want to watch, go to the cinema. But it's just that's just important as anything else, because if you can't do anything because you've burnt yourself out, well then it's you've gone completely the other direction, I suppose.
So absolutely, and look, it's again, it's like you said, it's balance. It's not okay. I Yeah, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I've been putting it off for 3 weeks, but I'm going to lie in bed and
Mhm.
eat three Snickers bars and watch 9 hours. Okay, yeah, if you're doing that regularly, that's probably not self care.
Yeah.
But if you need to recharge, and that recharges you, in moderation, find what works for you. And I like what you said about the horizon, because that's something that's how I look at it. Where I'd say, okay, if I get to a 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm on the verge of burnout. But can I recognize it when I'm at a 3 and a 4 or a 5,
Mm.
and bring myself back to a 2, and can I monitor it that way? And sometimes it gets to 7, 8, 9, 10 because I'm a human and it happens. But now I know the tools how to get back, and I'm better at spotting it before it gets to that level. But no, just to say, I like the horizon thing, because that's a very good
Mm.
way of describing how I would personally do it myself. Okay, I always say to people, it's a little thing. It's like, oh, I haven't cut my nails in 4 or 5 days. Whoa. That to me is the first sign of I'm starting to I care a little bit less.
Yeah.
And it's just a very real warning sign. Okay, now what is it? Now it's, oh, I didn't wash myself today. I didn't go outside and treat it. What's going
Yeah.
on? But it can be spotted early on. It's like, no, what I'm going to do? Cutting my nails. I feel great when I cut my nails. I, I feel fresher, and I can actually kind of, okay, I'll go for a walk. You know what? I pick up the phone. I ring. Listen, do you want to
Mm.
go for a coffee? I'll bring the young lad. Do you want to play Minecraft for an hour here? And two of us will chill out and we'll have a laugh, and I cut my nails. But
Yeah.
again, for me, I'm not saying everyone cut your nails. That's it, top tip. But I'm saying get to know yourself, get to know your
Yeah.
own little signs, and you know, spot yourself early and try and relax yourself before the horizon is, I don't know the opposite of horizon, right here.
Don't know what it is actually. Is there not? Probably not. I want to ask you, I haven't asked this to many people, but just a kind of interest in, I know you came to kind of psychotherapy, I suppose a little bit later, we'll say, like not straight after school, I mean to say. When you were growing up, like, do you remember what you wanted to be?
Oh God, it changed. I
Oh,
remember, I don't know what, again, but it's very, I suppose it's very me. I suppose it's an unusual question, the way I'm about to answer it, I mean. I used to tell people I wanted to be a priest. I used to always say that.
really?
No, I didn't though. What I wanted was to please people. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
people, oh, isn't he good?
Yeah.
Jamie's a good boy. Jamie's this. But I always had a passion. I love books. I love literature. I love words. I wanted to be a teacher. Actually, when I was in my very early 20s, that's what I started to do. But it was
Right.
anxiety led me to leave college. I couldn't figure it out. Why is everyone else fitting into groups? And
Mm,
I'm sitting here with my heart pounding out my chest, thinking, oh, look at all them, all the sporty people here, all the music people here, and I'm just this loner. And I was frightened. And then it was easier to eventually not go in, even though I loved it. I was doing an arts degree. It probably changed now. I'm 38. This when I was 19 or 20.
yeah.
I did English, maths, psychology, and philosophy as part of the arts degree, and I liked it. Very interested in it, but anxiety made me no. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm scared. So I think I always wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted. I wanted to teach English. And again, maybe that's because my role models were teachers when I was growing up. I don't know. But there's so two answers to the question: what I told everybody and what I really wanted to be.
But you know the way you saw, because it's interesting. You saw that the priest is someone who's helping people out and stuff like that. But you didn't think of teachers in the same light at the time, or you just felt that because students maybe didn't like certain teachers, that it wasn't the same level of respect.
It's very interesting. Actually, only this moment you're after making me aware of why I didn't. That's very interesting. Why didn't I make that link? I don't know. I think if I was being honest, when I was in school, I was always I was almost made fun of for being good. you know,
All right,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
I was good at school, and people was like, "Oh, books aren't cool." It's like,
yeah,
I love books. Like what? But you're very much pushed to the outside if you like that kind of thing. And I think maybe there's still that part of me that somewhat believes that on some level,
yeah,
that voice that's like, "Oh no, that's not." Not that a priest is cool, or that I think it is or it isn't for a 7-year old. Not that I saw it as cool, but again, I saw it as a way to maybe impress other people. And I was always trying so hard to do that because of
yeah.
my own insecurities.
No, it's interesting because it's such a grown up answer, I guess, for a child to say pre. 'Cause I think, like if I asked my brothers, it would probably be football, both of them. I don't think I did because I wasn't good. They were quite good at football, to be fair, and I wasn't. I think as soon as I saw like Kurt Cobain, I was like, yeah, I want to be a
Yeah.
musician or singer or something. And then it went from there. I still do want to be that, but like, it doesn't always pan out the way you wanted to. But it's interesting how grown up your answers were. I remember, and I feel kind of bad for it still, but I remember this we were about 14, I'd say, and this one of the smarter kids in class got like for Christmas got this pencil case, like a metal one, and it had all like cool stuff in it, but we obviously like mocked him for being a nerd, like, but that's what he wanted for Christmas. But not, at the time we were just like, why would anybody want that for Christmas and
Yeah.
stuff? But that kind of goes on. But um I kind of still feel bad just by association being part of that group. I'm not just saying it now because I'm on this podcast, right? I wasn't slagging up for it because I thought it was actually an all right present, to be fair. But
Yeah.
probably better than like, I was getting Arsenal jerseys and stuff, so like
Yeah.
that was going to be out of date in a year's time. But the fact that we always kind of it's and maybe because you were a good lad growing up, like you wanted to do responsible things where we were all going, yeah, we want to be a footballer, which is such an outrageous idea considering the tiny tiny amounts of Irish people that get to be actual
Mm.
footballers at levels, you know.
Yeah.
But Jamie, I know you've sent me some of the details, and I can put
Mhm.
that up on here as well. With regards to just phone numbers and emails and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I won't put you on the spot there, just in case you don't have them all in
No,
front of you.
no, I have them
Oh,
here,
have you
but
got them?
probably
I'll read
better.
them out there, sure. Now, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
Yeah, look, the contact number is 085 188 0001, and the email is gamblingsupport@afrc.ie. It's me that answers both of those. You're not dealing with a team of people, you're not getting an automated message. If you see me and you like me and think I can help, reach out. If you see me and don't like me but still think I can help, reach out and I'll find someone that maybe could. And yeah, look, if you put them on the screen, better again. I'm not technically
Neither am
gifted.
I.
Well, yeah, well then there they are. They're read out. We can put it in
Yeah.
the link, or I can put it in the comments or something, I suppose. But just to say that support is there. It's free. It's it's not a tick the box exercise, and there's no limit to the sessions. It's not 6, 8, and you're done. It's how long it takes. Like I said to you just before we went on air, if one person sees this
Yeah.
and reaches out and gets the help that they need and deserve, outrageous success. Because I've just thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. This has been, very interesting for me.
Hmm.
And look, thanks again. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for your. You mentioned your brothers in the podcast. Thanks for setting that up.
Yeah.
It was. I really appreciated it, and I'm delighted when you texted me a week or so ago to say yeah. And again, I really enjoyed it. I do
Good.
this every week.
Yeah, no, and no, we can if you want, Jamie. No problem. We'll talk about something else. We'll talk about the priesthood next week. But Jamie, you have been a brilliant guest, and I can't thank you enough for your time. Obviously, I will put the info in all the posts I put up on the social media kind of platforms, and the best way to kind of get it out there. If you don't mind sticking with me for a minute, I'll close this out and we'll get a quick photo and we'll be on our way. Thank you very
100%.
much. We'll also have to always say thanks to John because he is the technical minded of the podcast and he will do the YouTube stuff for me. Always does. I always thank my mum and granddad, Jerry Calvin. You subscribe to us on YouTube if you wouldn't mind. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and obviously all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, all the rest of them. If you do like listen to the podcast when you're running or whatever, and you don't want to look at the screen, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, once again, obviously for the people who tuned in today, thank you very much for doing so. And once again, Jamie, thanks a million. It was brilliant.
No, thank you.
All right, everyone. Yeah, see you next week. Bye.